What's happening, everyone? Nicky Hawkins here, West Ham Fan TV. Now, I'm just sitting in my garden. I'm about to go to work, but obviously there was a big, massive Twitter storm yesterday about some words that Karren Brady said. So what I've done is, instead of just jumping on and doing a video, I was as angry as everybody else. I've actually gone into the article written by The Guardian, who calls the Twitter storm, and I've tried to dissect what she actually said, right? So obviously what a lot of people saw on Twitter is that she was trying to change the branding and the culture of the club. Now, first off, let's see some quotes from Lady Brady, as she likes to call herself. She says, the Olympic Stadium has been built less than sort of a mile away from us. I don't know if that's true. It seems more than a mile to me. We saw it as a real opportunity to change the brand values of the club. There was no plan to plug the debt. There was a plan to plug the debt, build the future, and create the culture. Now, that's what a lot of people got upset about her talking about the culture of the club and changing the culture of the club. What she's actually talking about there is, you know, and I'm no Lady Brady fan, as many of you know. I don't like the woman, to be quite honest, but what she's actually talking about there is a business culture, and the business culture is in the connections between the club and within the club, the business model of the club. That's what she's talking about there. She wasn't talking about any culture of West Ham fans. In fact, she goes on to say that, talking about the fans, if you're always driven by money, you lose your tradition, values, and what you're there for. The stadium and the league are not what makes the club, it's the people who support it, protecting their traditions and their values, and their integrity in their own brand is very important. So that's what she said about the fans. Now, does she mean this? Skipping past the culture part, which, you know, was taken well out of context. Now, that quote is the most important quote to me, because she says there, breaking it down, that if you haven't got the supporters, you haven't got no club, which is quite interesting reading for me, because in my experience, the club don't treat its fans very well. If that's what she's saying, is it a soundbite? Possibly. Is it something that she believes? Maybe. Is she concerned by it? I don't really think so. That's the problem. It's not. Maybe it's not her job to be concerned. I've said this before. I don't think it's her job to be concerned about the fans. That's for other people to sort of counteract her. So she's the real driving force behind the move. Which another quote I'm going to say, that she said that the move to the stadium has been well received. Now, by who she means well received there, I don't know, because I know a lot of fans that haven't received it very well. Maybe she's talking about the corporate. She was at a business event, so that is possible. Maybe she's talking about the corporate side. But the thing I make about all this sort of stuff with Miss Brady, I think she was misquoted on this occasion. I'm not her biggest fan, as I say. I think she puts her foot in her mouth way too much. But she was at a business meeting, and you have to make, not exceptions, but you have to sort of take that into context about what she's saying. Now, have we received the move very well? Not really. A majority of fans that I've spoke to are not a great fan of the stadium. They're not a great fan of the way the stadium's run. But, you know, she's there talking about business sense. And as much as I'd like to jump on the back of this and turn around and say, well, no, she's wrong, because I think a lot of what she does is wrong. Yesterday, I think it's been taken way out of context by the press. Now, we'll get onto the press in a second. There is a media storm brewing around West Ham at the moment, and they jump on anything. So we must remember that. And the most important thing that we must remember is, as fans, you know, I'm not here to protect the board. I mean, the board, you know, make their own decisions. They do whatever the fuck they want. But what I'm here to do is sort of see in the best interest of the fans. Now, I feel that the press picking up these things from the club are sort of starting to create a bit of a civil war. They're jumping on anything. So we must look into these things before we start to criticise. We must jump onto these things before we start. And don't get me wrong, there is a massive amount of stuff that we could, that needs improving, that needs to be sorted out. I think her saying that the move has been well received is naive. I think it's a bit blinkered. I think it's a bit a stupid thing for her to say, and maybe she could choose her words more carefully when she's talking about things like culture, because that's a massive talking point about the fans. That there are a lot of fans that feel, me included, that the club are trying to change the culture, and as soon as the word culture comes out of her mouth and is misquoted by people like in the Guardian, there's going to be a massive shitstorm to hit the press. So maybe they should keep themselves out of the press for a little while until this is all blown over, until they've got something sorted out. I know there was a meeting yesterday. I made quite clear on Twitter yesterday we wasn't invited to that meeting, even though we'd put our names down. I spoke to a guy who chose the meetings, and he assured me, and I have to take his word because there's nothing else to take really, that the names wasn't looked at and the people that was going wasn't looked at. It was more to do with problems, and he took there a lot of problems and had a meeting last night. I'm going to look at the minutes of the meeting in a minute. I'm going to phone the guy up that was there to get some information from him, so we can sort of report that sort of stuff and tell you about what's going on. But this particular moment in time, as I said, the press are trying to pick up on everything to do with West Ham. Is it right? It needs to be reported, but it's the way it's reported. Now, before we start kicking off at everyone to do with the club, it only creates, as I said, a civil war. There are people that are happy with the move, there are people that are unhappy with the move. And what I'd say at this particular moment in time, be careful what you're reading, because they have got it in for West Ham for some reason, the press. A lot of people would testify to that. As a fan, we have been quite negative towards the club, I must say that. But I only feel we are negative towards the things that affect us. I don't care about what affects the corporate people, whatever. Me as a paying fan, someone that follows the club over land and sea, has been doing so for the last 25, 30 years. I look at what affects me and what the club could be doing for people like us, paying fans, and people, around us. And I don't think they've done a great job, but they are trying to sort them sort of things out. So don't believe everything you read, especially when it comes to these big newspaper articles, because they are, they thrive off of us. They thrive off of the club failing. They thrive off of the club, the fans fighting, and people getting disgruntled with the board, and they will do anything to try and create them situations. So be careful what you read. I'm behind Lady Brady on that part. There are other parts of the speech that I don't think she should be talking about, like the rebranding. But that's all corporate stuff. That's all, branding stuff. That's all stuff that, although I don't want my club to be rebranded, you've got to sort of trust the people in that way, because if it brings in investment, if it brings in better players, if it attracts a better, I'm not talking about fans, the fans are the fans, as I said, we always be the bread and butter, but if it attracts better players and better investment in the club, you've got to welcome that. And although I don't agree with it, some things you've got to trust. The things that I'm more concerned about are the things to do with fans, that directly affect fans right at this moment in time, like the stewarding, that needs to be sorted out. The policing needs to be sorted out. The way they treat people, the way they've located people, outsourcing ticket prices, things like that. They're the things that really affect me. So just be calm, especially when you read it from the big papers, because they will sensationalise anything to try and get us infighting and trying to make the chairman get on the back foot and trying to, to defend themselves and things like that. So just be calm. That's what was actually said yesterday. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this. International break, of course. We'll be back with Post-Match Pint next week. On the socials up tomorrow. We've got some FIFA stuff coming up to plug the international break hole up, so to speak, a bit like they're plugging up the debt. But yeah, keep on watching the channel. One more thing I have to say before we leave: we have been lucky enough to be nominated into the finals of the FBA Football Bloggers Awards. We're in the best video category. I'll be doing a separate video on that. So, but while you're here, and if you watch this all the way to the end, go onto the FBA's website. There's a pinned tweet on our Twitter, so you can do that and click to vote for us in that. Make sure you do, because although we are up against some really big channels and we've probably got no chance of winning, every vote counts, so you never know. You know, we'll be going to the FBAs, so you never know. Please click that, and keep the faith, people. Come on, you irons.